All right, welcome back to the channel. So what goes around comes around apparently, but it really shouldn't. Errol Spence Jr. gets ripped by Keith Thurman for being emotional, fighting his leftovers, and not manning up or manning down to fight one-time Thurman. And why I can't lie, I do enjoy Errol Spence Jr. torturing Keith Thurman, which the reason for which will be apparent when you listen to this video. However, I'm kind of with Keith Thurman on this. Sorry for being corny. This one time. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So people understand there's a couple fighters that I will tell you that I really have become fans of because I think a lot of them as people. Errol Spence Jr. is one of those guys because I've been watching Errol Spence Jr. as a young from a contender, fighting, struggling to get shots at these other champions, and proving himself, and all the way up into the point where he is just pretty much the man at the welterweight division, or a man in and of himself at the welterweight division, somebody that a lot of people want to fight, and a guy that pretty much has his pick and who can pick and choose whoever he wants to fight because he's reached that level in his career, and it's a wonderful thing to see that. Early in his career, though, he had a nemesis named Keith Thurman who would not fight him, who Errol Spence Jr. would sit next to him during interviews. He would sit next to him and, walk up to him during interviews. Errol was pushing and pushing to get Keith Thurman because at a time, Keith Thurman was like Errol is now, a unified champion in the welterweight division and really considered the man in the welterweight division outside of a Floyd Mayweather Jr. or Manny Pacquiao who can't come in and out of the division, right? So I've been paying close attention to Errol Spence Jr. and his relationship with Keith Thurman. But now that things have changed, Errol Spence Jr. really is the man. You've got Keith Thurman now who is trying to regain his spot, right, after having lost to Keith Thurman, that's saying, hey, man, now I want to fight Errol Spence Jr. And Errol Spence Jr. is having next to none of it. Like, no, you put me through all of this nonsense trying to chase you around. You had your opportunity for the fight. I'm not hearing it. I got other stuff to do. I've got Manny Pacquiao I could be looking to fight. I've got Terrence Crawford I could be looking to fight. And you, sir, you just gonna have to figure it out, young man. I feel for Errol. I understand why his camp, everybody around him might be looking at Keith Thurman like, nah, man, it's time for you. It's time for you to struggle. You going out here and get people to call for you to make the fights, and you put in the work like that, man, to get where I am. I'm not going to help you get back where you were. Go in and sit down there. Go fight Terrence Crawford. Go fight Sean Porter or somebody like that. Get yourself in a mandatory position, and then maybe I'll fight you. That type of attitude I can understand from Errol Spence Jr. However, nah, man, it's just not boxing, dog. That's just not what it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be corny and say two wrongs don't make a right, but dude, two wrongs, two dudes not making a fight just means a fight don't happen, right? As a boxing fan, I want to see excellent fights, and there's a bunch of very good fights that can be made in the welterweight division, and some of them right now really do include Keith Thurman because if you've not noticed, Errol is kind of cleared out, not completely cleared out, obviously, but gone a good way towards, clearing out a good bit of that competition. Like when Errol first jumped up on the scene, it was Errol. I mean, it was Sean Porter, it was Danny Garcia, it was Kell Brook. Who else was in there? Yeah, but pretty much that was it. Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, Kell Brook, Keith Thurman. Right, those guys were there. Terrence Crawford was at 140 pounds, so he wasn't there at the time, right? Now, but Errol's now cleared out Sean Porter and Danny Garcia and Kell Brook. If of all of the other guys that remain, yes, Manny Pacquiao, like for me, Errol should fight in whatever order he sees fit. If he's at 147 pounds, he should fight the guys that got the other belts, right? So A fight with Terrence Crawford, that makes a lot of sense for Errol Spence. A fight with Manny Pacquiao, that makes a lot of sense for Errol Spence. And I'd be like, yeah, make those fights. That's the first fight that should be made and the second fight that should be made. Either way you want to do it. You could say it could be Manny first and then Terrence, or Terrence first, then Manny. However you want to do it, it makes sense. Or however he would want to do it, it makes sense because they're also champions. However, we know more than likely Manny Pacquiao's not fighting next, right? And going to fight him next. He's going to fight Mikey Garcia. He might come down to Dallas, have the fight in the Dallas Stadium, and make it look like everybody like we're going to get this fight going. But Manny jumping off the pandemic to get right at Errol Spence Jr. in his next fight when it comes back, no. More than likely that's going to be a Mikey Garcia, something like that. Terrence Crawford next. Is Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. going to be next? If you think so, you clearly have not been paying attention to what's been going on for the last year. That fight is not going to happen, right? So Errol Spence said he's going to come back in summer. Well, who are you going to come back in summer against? You can have a mandatory, your IBF mandatory. I think you took care of that. That might be coming up again. WBC cannot possibly give you a mandatory because you just got rid of the last two people that they ordered Keith Thurman to be mandatory for, right? He got rid of Danny Garcia and Sean Porter. So you can't, or he got the belt off Sean Porter, excuse me. He got the belt off Sean Porter. The very next fight, he fights Danny Garcia, who I do believe was, according to them, was mandated. So it's not the WBC guy. Who's it going to be, right? I mean, there could be Ugas, right? There's other guys where the fight could be made. But I don't know if there's a whole lot of guys that really do at that next tier that really deserve it more than Keith Thurman does, man. Because Keith Thurman, you say what you want about the Errol Spence Jr. thing, but he did fight Danny Garcia. He didn't duck Danny Garcia, and he beat Danny Garcia. He fought Sean Porter. He didn't duck Sean Porter. He beat Sean Porter, right? Now, Errol, whatever happened. I think moving forward, dude, Errol needs to beat the brakes off the dude. Like, that's the way you go about it, in my opinion. It's like, all right, okay, Keith, you can get this fight. You'll get this fight. If and only if you the last option. But he deserves that much. And I just want to be consistent. Like, personally, I'm being consistent here. If Errol, like Deontay Wilder at heavyweight, you know what they're going to try to do to him if he can't get this Tyson Fury fight or whatever. These guys are going to try to avoid and not fight him, right? Same thing with Luis King Kong Ortiz. Two of the best heavyweights that there's been in the last 10 years. 99%, the vast majority of the welterweight division just decided they were going to all get together and not fight the guys. So they would just act like he's not the best. I don't think that Errol Spence in the welterweight should do that to Keith Thurman. You know, Keith Thurman, he lost to Manny Pacquiao, dude, but he gave Manny Pacquiao a very, very good fight, and he was coming off of surgeries and all kind of different issues. Keith Thurman is a legitimate threat for as much of a threat to anybody in the welterweight division as anybody else is, save maybe Errol Spence and, my young dude that's coming up, Jaron Ennis. But, hey, I got to say something. Jaron, not quite yet for Errol, okay? Slow up. You're not quite, man. Not quite, man. But anyway, I implore Errol Spence Jr. to reconsider the very natural instinct to tell somebody what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you liked it like that when you were in my situation, then you'll like then you're going to like it when you are now in a different situation in the one that I used to be in. So, but if he does that, I don't really I can understand it, but honestly, I don't think it's the best for the division. I think the guy should fight, but dude was hilarious with how he was clowning a man with all of this. You're being emotional. Go find what did he tell him to go, get a therapist or something to help you get over that the internal rage that you feel from being disappointed earlier in your career. Yeah, whatever, dude. He's got all this money, so he can afford a therapist. You getting what's coming to you, really. I just hope I see the fight. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think. And with that, I'm out. Peace.